Hi. Today we're going to talk about ego, because there's so much talk of the ego in spiritual things that I was so confused. I had no idea what people are talking about, and I'm still not sure that people even know what they're talking about. So first I went to etymology, and that said, in metaphysics, ego is the self, that which feels, acts or thinks, the natural constitution necessary to us. Well, in my opinion, anything natural is God-given. So then it went down to Latin. And to be honest, I always find the descriptions, the definitions in the church Latin have just totally wrecked the English language and fuck with the meaning of things. So in Latin it says sense of conceit, which is what I thought ego was pretty much growing up. So in Google, when I checked out Google, person's sense of self, colloquially for inflated pride. Freudian model. Ego is the organised, realistic part of the mind that balances moral standards. We have to look at moral standards and saying, where do your moral standards come from? Spirit or society? I know that my moral standards are not based on society at all. They come from spirit. So he also says, everyday use, self-importance, vanity and conceit. There's that Latin coming out again. Self-concept, your conscious awareness, own identity and worth. Well, your conscious awareness, if you're awakening, has everything to do with spirit. So then I looked at some spiritual groups. So some spiritual groups believe the ego is consciousness, and others believe ego is only earthly thoughts or our social concept of self. So the first group that believe that ego is consciousness believe ego is another word for your I am. And that's an interesting thought. And it is very confusing, and not everyone gets it right. Here's my example. I got really confused. I paid $900 Australian for this world-renowned spiritual psychic to do a QHHT hypnosis on me, and I'm very hard to hypnotise. So I didn't go under. I was just very relaxed, in a very relaxed meditative state, but aware. Right? She asked a lot of questions about my life, and some leading questions because she was looking for trauma. She wanted me to tell her what I see using my imagination to see another life I once lived. At this stage, I'm going along with it, but I'm thinking, I could do all this myself. Really? So I'm going along with everything. Then she starts asking questions to my higher consciousness, my higher self. And when she gets to one tricky question that I wasn't sure of the answer, she goes, leave your ego out of it. So I've gone, well, if ego's your consciousness and she's saying leave your ego out of it, but then she's asking my higher self to answer, it was just all too much. It was like, oh my God. So she, something that came out later in the report made me believe that she was actually a true psychic. But then people have different perceptions of ego. And then later, when I was thinking about it, it brings up the question, with so much imagination being used in the spiritual world presently, and I'm absolutely very wary of who are true prophets and who is believing, just imagining and believing in their own imagination. Because we are at a time where there's false prophets, many false prophets, and all this imagination in the spiritual world, and people believing what they're told and then thinking that, oh, I imagined this, so it must be true. You know, I think we really need to ground ourselves. What else did I want to talk about? And another thing, if someone's got the wrong interpretation of ego, yet they've based their business and their books and all the rest of the stuff that they waffle on with, and they're making good money, are they going to keep going? If they find out that it's not correct, are they going to change and admit that they could have got it wrong? Or are they going to keep going with the bullshit because they're making good money? So, you know, this just a reminder for you to trust your own judgment and question. And this doesn't mean poking holes in other people's work and bagging them out. It just means using your mind to find your own space so you can stand confidently in your own space. And that's about it for today. That's my take on ego. Okay, so have a good day. It's really hot here in Oz, but it's a beautiful day. I might get into the garden. You take care. Much love.